Hi, my name is Eva Steinman. I am a senior at Columbia University studying financial economics, originally from right here in New York City. I am honored to be serving as the Director of Speaker Outreach for the Israel Summit, and I'm thrilled to be speaking with our next presenter, Daniel Lubetzky. You may know Daniel as the founder and executive chairman of Kind Snacks, but you may not be as familiar with his powerful personal journey or his extensive connection to Israel. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and joining us as a part of this important initiative.
It's an honor, Eva.
Taking it back to the very beginning, I would love to start by hearing about your upbringing. As the son of a Holocaust survivor in the Mexico City Jewish community, what was your connection to your Judaism and to Israel like?
So, as you described, I was raised in a pretty unusual community. It was Mexican Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. So I grew up speaking Yiddish before I even spoke Spanish or English or Hebrew. I went to a Jewish day school, but it was very cultural, but very Zionistic. And my dad, who, as you mentioned, survived a concentration camp in Dachau, taught us from a very early age of the importance of having Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people so that what happened to him never happens again. And so the Jewish people always have a haven and a homeland in case of dangers, but also as a light unto the nations and unto the world to hopefully make a contribution as Israel does every day for the betterment of society.
I would love to dive in and hear about one of your first companies, Peaceworks, next. Could you speak to the venture's mission and work and how your upbringing led you to create this company?
Yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I was taught by my mom and my dad about the importance of building bridges. And when I was in college, I started getting very interested in economics and in business. And I started learning how businesses can have a positive or negative effect in fostering cooperation, depending on how those ventures are structured. I ended up doing a lot of work during college and then also in law school, and wrote a thesis on the influence of economics in resolving the Arab-Israeli conflict. And then I wrote papers to encourage those joint ventures between Arabs and Israelis with American companies as catalysts, bringing them together. And right after law school, I ended up starting my company, Peaceworks, to turn that theory into practice. And Peaceworks had ventures. Its flagship venture was between Israelis, Palestinians, Egyptians, Arab Israelis, Jordanians, Turks, trading with one another and using business as a force to shatter stereotypes, to cement relationships, to give people a stake in the system and a recognition that it's better to work together rather against one another. Not ever assuming that that's the solution. There needs to be other things in terms of political respect and alignment and fulfillment of people's aspirations, but economics being one of the vectors for helping people discover each other's humanity and get to work with one another.
That's so incredible that you had this vision in law school that you were able to turn into a reality, and so inspiring.
Well, incredible till you saw how I executed. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but it was a lot of fun.
And along with Peaceworks in 2002, I know you founded the One Voice movement. And I'm curious, in your mind, what led you from for-profit to non-for-profit work in the region, and about One Voice's specific approach and impact?
I didn't really think, I've set up many ventures that are in the business world and in the nonprofit world and that are social enterprises. And for me, that model, whether it's for profit or not for profit, when I can use things with the market forces that can scale up faster and be self-sustaining, I like using business models. But the reason was that around the year 2000, in the year 2000, as maybe you weren't even born, but the Camp David negotiations broke down and violence broke out. And, all you were seeing was the worst of each side. What the media was showing you was the extremism from either side. And I was very paralyzed because I had left a very lucrative law uh, career to start Peaceworks. And here I was seeing terrorist bombings and a lot of destruction and a lot of hatred. And I knew a lot of Palestinians that were wonderful human beings that wanted a better future for their children, just like a lot of Israelis wanted a better future for their children. But you were not seeing that in the media. And after some paralysis and depression, I went back to the region and I gathered with my Palestinian friends and my Israeli friends and family. And I said, what's going on? And what I realized is that the conflict had been hijacked by voices of absolutism and extremism, not completely dissimilar to the way that extremists hijack the agenda here in the United States lately. And then you would imagine that there's no partner on the other side. And that's how Israelis and Palestinians felt, only with an existentialist sense of like there was no partner on the other side. And I realized that the overwhelming majority of Israelis and the overwhelming majority of Palestinians, it's not that they love the other side, but they wanted to have a better future for their children. And I understood that leaving the other side alone or respecting the other side's aspirations will also help them fulfill their maximum aspirations, was representative of the vast majority of people. And so we created this movement, One Voice, to try to amplify the voice of moderates and try to give uh, tools and a toolkit for ordinary citizens that felt helpless to know that there's something that they can do, to know that they can seize back the agenda by being active in the democratic space. And we ended up building the largest civic movement on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side. Till today, they've transformed into something else, but there are movements that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of signatory members and people that identify with them, that are just moderates that are very patriotic and proud of their own side, but recognize that the best way to fulfill our aspirations is by working with the moderates on the other side to build a better future for both peoples.
That's so incredible to hear that you were able to amplify kind of the moderate voice and create this sense of inclusion and inclusivity. That's amazing. And just a couple years after that, in 2004, I know that you started your best known venture, Kind Snacks, very near and dear to my heart. My cabinet is full of them at all times, which you've now grown into this multi-billion-dollar global health and wellness brand in a movement to make the world kinder. Kind is in over 35 markets globally and has expanded from your signature fruit and nut bars to now spanning 8 various product categories, all of which are very exciting to me. Knowing and hearing how Jewish values are so important to you in your personal life and the influence that they have, I would love to hear about how these same values informed your approach when starting Kind and continue to inform your approach in running this now hugely successful company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can share a couple thoughts on what you said. First of all, you have a job offer at Kind based on your deep knowledge of our company. But my dad passed away in the year 2003, which was ironically the year when we were conceiving and eventually launched Kind. And it's important to note that for any young entrepreneurs in the audience or for young people, that at that point I was thinking of throwing in, I think you say expression, throwing the towel, because we've had 10 years with Peaceworks and with One Voice, struggling, making ends meet barely. And I almost gave up on launching Kind. And, I decided to try it because I really had a lot of conviction about how this product that was whole ingredients that are leading with nutrient dense ingredients like almonds, but that was tasty and healthy, could really fit a void that I felt needed when I'm traveling or skipping lunch and need a healthy snack. I had already fallen in love with the possibility of building businesses that have a higher purpose, like Peaceworks. So the common thread in every venture that I built is trying to build bridges between people to prevent what happened to my father from happening again to other people. And Kind was very much created in to honor my dad, because something that was important about him as a Holocaust survivor is that he really made sure to tell us and remind us about what he went through and the horrors of the Holocaust that he had to endure in a concentration camp. But he never forgot also the kindness of others, and that in the darkest of moments, when other people would have not been blamed for just standing back, some people rose to be courageous and to show kindness. And there was a German soldier that, when my dad was not watching, that when other people were not watching, threw a potato by dad's feet, and gave my dad not just a little bit of nourishment when he was like weighing probably less than my 12-year-old weighs today, but also a little bit of a sense of recognition of his humanity. And that's why we named it Kind. And the mission of Kind is to hopefully build bridges by helping people discover the empathy and respect in one another. And the mission is to do the kind thing for your body, for your taste buds, and for your world. For your bodies by making nutrient dense foods. For your taste buds, it has to be delicious for people to buy it. And for your world is about trying to inspire people to treat each other with respect and empathy, particularly when it might not be the popular thing to do.
I'm incredibly inspired by that and by Kind's message of spreading how far, as you mentioned, like even the smallest acts of kindness can go, and inspiring the continued recognition of humanity that you spoke to, listening to others with open ears. It's really awesome. On a slightly different, but I guess similar note, one of the fundamental pillars of your family foundation is advocating for democracy and democratic institutions with the quote, advancement of liberal democratic values, including free speech, the rule of law, basic human rights, and a free and independent press. So, as the only democracy in the Middle East, you briefly touched on this, but why should the state of Israel matter to us as we sit on the other side of the world?
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to ask me about our country in the US, but I'll start with Israel. The state of Israel is, as you said, the only democracy in the Middle East. It's the strongest ally of the United States that has ever been. It's a very, very loyal country to the United States, but it's also the only homeland that the Jewish people have. And sadly, throughout history, over thousands of years, periodically there are pogroms and there are holocausts. There was a Holocaust, and there are other episodes from whether it was in Babylon thousands of years ago to most recently weeks ago. There's persecution of Jewish people, and so we want within our communities to be ambassadors of kindness and respect, and recognize that whether we like it or not, people are going to judge us as a people. But we also want to make sure that Israel is a vibrant, strong, secure state that can always be there as the one homeland that Jewish people can go no matter what, no matter when. And it's very important. It's also strategically very important. Israel just recently sold uh, technology to the United States. The United States is a super supporter of Israel, but Israel also adds value. They have a very, very strong alliance strategically, militarily, and most important in terms of values, in terms of shared values of, like you said, democracy, respect for one another, respect for people regardless of their gender or sexual preferences, respect for people regardless of their religion. And Israel, like the United States, is not a perfect country. There's a lot of work to be done to evolve and improve both our country here in the United States and Israel. But they do have a very strong start by committing to those basic principles of a liberal democracy that should, above all, respect democracy and the rule of law, and respect that freedom should not be taken for granted. And Eve, I hope you don't mind if I just talk for a minute about the United States. But when I moved from Mexico to the United States, and when I did all the work I did in the Middle East, it never crossed my mind that those lessons would be applicable here in our country. But here too, we need to recognize that in the United States, we cannot take any of these things for granted, and we need to safeguard freedom and democracy and respect towards one another.
I would like to conclude with one last question, a little bit more personal, but you're speaking to thousands of students from all over the world. Many of them, like myself, are huge Kind fans. Many of them are aspiring entrepreneurs. Many of them are engaging with the state of Israel and hearing all of this conversation for the very first time. So with that, if you could send any message directly to all of the students and people watching, what would that be?
Never underestimate your power to make a difference. I was like you, a college student and an activist, and sometimes had crazy dreams, and people thought they were every one of the things that I described. When a confused Mexican Jew told people that he was going to build a movement between, that was my son, between Arabs and Israelis, they thought that guy's crazy. And we did it. And when we thought about peace works, we did it. And when we thought about Kind, we did it. And what we were about to do to try to support and buttress American democracy, we will do it. But the only reason is that we don't just belabor and wonder, can we, can't we? We don't allow failure or the fear of failure to stop us from trying, because then for sure you failed already. Do not underestimate your power and recognize that with that power comes a responsibility. Every single one of you guys has to recognize that you inherited a world from my generation and the generation before me that has a lot of problems, and your generation needs to lead us with respect towards one another, without extremism, with nuance, with a little bit of tolerance, with a little bit of humility, but with a lot of dedication and conviction and a sense of potential to be actors in this world. Do not just burrow yourselves in your work or concern yourselves with only day-to-day things. Of just recognize that all of us have a role to play and a duty to play it in our society.
All of those lessons are incredible. Fear of failure is failure in itself. What you just said really strikes a chord, and as well as not underestimating your power and your responsibility is incredibly important, and definitely lessons that I think we will all keep front of mind as we move forward and learn to lead and give back, hopefully, just as you have. I want to thank you
And,
so
and
much for.
I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not trying to turn you guys into superheroes that don't have feelings or that don't get broken sometimes, because when you follow that journey and you try to make a difference, you will fall and it will hurt. But if you're not falling and hurting, it means you're not trying hard enough. You guys need to be comfortable taking risks and do everything you can to make this a better world. And along the way, you will find some moments where you're going to be depressed and where you're going to be sad and disappointed. And it's important during those moments that you be a little bit forgiving about yourselves and a little bit more understanding that things don't happen overnight. But don't give up. Keep working on it, and you'll look back and your journey will be worth it regardless of where you end, because it's the journey of doing the best you can and finding meaning by contributing to society that will make you live full lives.
Thank you so much for those words and for taking the time to speak with me today. It was truly an honor to have the opportunity to hear your thoughts and learn more about you and your career. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity, and thank you so much again.
Thank you, Eva, and nice to meet everybody. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you.